in the article you did with Catherine Harnois, the promise and pitfalls of intersectional scale development in social science and medicine, which is one of my favorite articles of yours. It's just what I love about this article is it's critical, but it's also really so faithful to sort of like the foundational feminist scholarship. So you got Bell Hooks in here, you got Kimberly Crenshaw, yeah, which I love. But at the end of this article, and so this relates to Latanya's question, you, Professor Bastos, write about, this problem of just focusing on difference. And you write, let's see, you wrote, without the problem of just focusing on different outcomes. So, finding out like, oh, okay, it's different for this group and different for that group, without simultaneously examining the relationships, processes, and power structures that create and maintain these differences. So Latanya, it, applied to your work, if you find differences in, like, I don't know, Latino men and Black women and all that, and they're just compared to white men or whatever, and just talk about these differences without putting them in this sort of larger context, you've missed the boat. And so my question for you, you wrote, this is a quote, attention to process rather than simply outcomes is critical. And so my question is, if you had to give quantitative intersectionality researchers like Latanya one bit of advice about how to attend to process in their quantitative intersectionality research, like what would you say? And I'd like you to be as concrete as possible to ensure that people aren't just, I often talk about, it ain't just about identities. Everybody has a multiple identity. So finding out the different, that's not it. But you're also saying that finding out that there are differences and just stopping there and saying this group is different from this group and these outcomes, you're not, that's also not it. So what would you say? What type of concrete advice would you give to the researchers gathered here?
This is a very tough question. I don't think I have a good answer to that, but I will try, okay? I think the first thing to do is to base your study on a sound theoretical framework. So your theoretical framework should be able to describe and analyze the social processes at play and that are important for the outcome in question, right? So in the introduction of your paper or a grant proposal, you should elaborate on the theoretical background, on the theoretical framework, right? And then you would develop your study and conduct the analysis, and that's it, okay? And now you have your findings. When you analyze, when you interpret the findings that you have in your hands, the good thing to do is to go back to the theoretical framework and give meaning to these findings based on the theoretical framework. So if you find that women have higher frequency of a specific disease compared to men, for example, what does that mean if you use the theoretical framework you elaborated on in the introduction section of your paper? Does it mean that women are exposed to certain circumstances that men are not? So you should give meaning to the results of your study by going back to the theoretical framework. So this is something that is rare to see in many epidemiologic studies on health inequities, and I think that that should be avoided if we are to advance research and policy on the topic in some way, I think.